morning, I want to share with you the text for God of Grace, God of Glory. As we're approaching the Reformation in church, I just wanted to share these words with you. We don't typically sing this song on Reformation Sunday, but it is really quite impactful. God of grace and God of glory, on your people pour your power. Crown your ancient church's story. Bring its bud to glorious flower. And then the petition, grant us wisdom, grant us courage for the facing of this hour. Lo, the hosts of evil round us scorn the Christ, assail his ways. From the fears that long have bound us, free our hearts to faith and praise. Grant us wisdom, grant us courage for the living of these days. Cure your children's wearing madness. Bend our pride to your control. Shame our wanton, selfish gladness, rich in things and poor in soul. Grant us wisdom, grant us courage, lest we miss your kingdom's goal. And finally, save us from weak resignation to the evils we deplore. Let the gift of your salvation be our glory evermore. Grant us wisdom, grant us courage, serving you whom we adore. So those are really fantastic words for the Reformation. And a little bit about that text and how it came to be. The author is Harry Emerson Fosdick, and he was born in 1878 and lived to 1969 in Buffalo, New York. And so this text was actually written, and it's important to know, between World War I and World War II. And so Pastor Emerson Fosdick was known as a social pastor. He preached on social causes and social awareness of the time in which he lived. So he was the founding minister of the famous Riverside Church in New York City when he wrote God of Grace and God of Glory for its 1930 dedication. And it was used as a processional hymn for the opening service on October 5th, and then again at the dedication on February 8th in 1931. And so I read those words. Consider at the time when he wrote this, the United States was in the throes of the Great Depression, and as I said, between two world wars. So he was a champion of the social gospel movement, and he recognized the plight of the poor, especially in the urban Northeast during the Industrial Revolution. So that does help to put these words in context, but they're so reminiscent of that Reformation time for Luther. In the Presbyterian, one of the Presbyterian editors that like to talk about hymns like this, Carlton Young, he notes that Fosdick's stirring radio sermons, books, and public pronouncements established Riverside Church as a forum for the critique of the same wealth and privilege whose gifts made it possible for the building of the church. So that's kind of an interesting quagmire, if you will. So he wasn't exactly pro-wealth, yet there he was standing in a church preaching, and it was that wealth that created the church for him to preach in. But he was a strong social warrior, if you will. And it goes on to say, under his leadership at Riverside Church, which was interdenominational, interracial, without a creed, and astonishingly for Baptists, required no specific mode of baptism. So at the center of Fosdick's ministry was urban social ministry. So pretty interesting. But the language of this hymn, you heard it. There's that petition there. Grant us wisdom, grant us courage. So he concludes every verse with that same refrain. And the petition also at the beginning of the third verse, cure thy children's wearing madness, bend our pride to your control. So again, asking God please help us. And whether we're talking about Reformation, whether we're talking about Fosdick, who was living at the Great Depression, trying to preach and instill courage and faith in his congregation, to today, when we have so much warring madness going on around us today, bring it all back to God, who is in control. That gives us that hope, that light that we so desperately need. And then again, the final stanza, another petition, equally prophetic, says, "Save us from weak resignation to the evils we deplore." So that's just some of this poetry is timeless. It really mattered then, and it matters just the same way now. We are people, we do the same things over and over again, and this poetry is beautiful and very helpful, and I'm happy that we get to sing it at church. The choir is going to be singing this on Sunday during our Reformation service. This will be our offertory. So I do hope that you will enjoy it, and now that you've kind of heard the backstory, it helps you understand the language that was written and why it was written, but how it's applicable then and applicable now. Thanks so much. See you Sunday. Bye-bye.